Hello, I'm Kristan McMahon, and I serve as the president of the Robert H. Jackson Center in Jamestown, New York. We are launching a new resource for scholars and for students, and I'm excited to tell you about that. And with me are two people who can give you more information. First, Professor John Q. Barrett, our Jackson Center Linnaeus Scholar, a Jackson Center board member, and a professor of law at St. John's University. Professor Barrett?
Thank you, Kristen. The Nuremberg trial, the one and only international Nuremberg trial held before the International Military Tribunal, occurred in 1945-1946. So this 2020-2021 calendar year marks the 75th anniversary of that trial, the world's first international criminal trial holding heads of state accountable for breaching treaties, waging aggressive war, committing crimes against humanity, and conspiring to do all of those crimes. And the records of the Nuremberg trial are newly available through this Jackson Center project, this resource page. When the IMT concluded its work in the fall of 1946, of course, its proceedings had been transcribed, and that text was published in many languages, including, unfortunately, with a fair amount of editorial improvement. So the transcript, although widely available, is not a verbatim record of the Nuremberg trial. The trial was also not filmed gavel to gavel. There are segments of filming, but only a smattering of hours across those many months, because film was expensive, and I think because the participants didn't really anticipate what film would become in its historical significance. What did happen gavel to gavel was audio recording of the Nuremberg trial. And at the end of the trial, those wire recordings were kind of dumped, if you will, on the International Court of Justice, because Nuremberg was an ad hoc proceeding, a temporary institution. And the ICJ in the case, even though it has nothing to do with criminal jurisdiction, was a continuing entity. And those tapes were there for decades and decades. Recently, they have been digitized and made available, but they're still sort of unedited and inaccessible unless you really have the time to mine them. The Jackson Center is spending the time really to mine them and to assemble them on a resource page. And so that is what this project is through the Jackson Center website, a chronological growing list of links to the audio recordings, which are often multi-language recordings and can be synced and read side by side or watched or listened to side by side with the transcript, that allows you to follow the Nuremberg trial in manageable segments. What's being posted first is Justice Robert H. Jackson, the U.S. Chief Prosecutor's opening statement on November 21, 1945, and in the March 1946 period, aspects of the defense case put on by the lead defendant, the former Reichsmarshal of Nazi Germany, Hermann Goering. And so in a chronological set of clickable YouTube organized segments, that audio material is now, thanks to the Jackson Center efforts, available. That's what we're announcing through this, this program. The person who's done a lot of that gathering and organizing and harvesting is Greg Peterson, a lawyer in Jamestown, New York, a partner in the law firm of Phillips-Lytle, and one of the co-founders of the Robert Jackson Center. So Greg, it would be helpful for you to describe a little bit more about how these resources are being assembled.
I think it's terrific. Thank you, John, and thank you, Kristen, and thanks to the Robert H. Jackson Center for permitting this portal, this opportunity over the last, really from its inception, to enhance the understanding of the Nuremberg trial. It is kind of fun to just reflect back on the original archives, which John referred to, which included 1,942 cut gramophone discs of audio recordings of the hearings of the International Military Tribunal, all of it, 37 rolls of 35 millimeter nitrate films that were used, not all of the trial, and which then resulted in an archive which unfortunately did not find translation quickly after the trial. And in fact, except for some of the video, or some of the film, turned into kind of commercialized it that laid fallow, and certainly as did the audio and the archives of the International Court of Justice. What the Jackson Center has done is to, in conjunction with the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, has been very gracious in making available to us the film and now the audio, is to really put them into user-friendly, bite-sized pieces, which have really, we're going to walk our way ultimately through the entire trial. So from Nuremberg Day 1 through Nuremberg Day 218, you can see that portion which relates to the voices, frankly, of history. These are the sounds of justice. So in a very meaningful sense, when you talk about Justice Robert Jackson, or you talk about the prosecutors Shawcross and Rudenko, you can actually hear, and in some cases see them, hear their voices and see them in action. And that's what I think the Jackson Center has uniquely has made available through the film project for the last 10 or so years, and now through its audio archaeology, the audio project. So I think we're very pleased that this can be part of that. And as Professor Barrett said, the launch today is to see from Nuremberg Day 80 through Nuremberg Day 88, which deals with the defense of Hermann Goering, which was somewhat of a marquee event during the trial. Now you can actually see portions of it. That all of that which was filmed is now in a presentable. At the same time, listen to the entire audio in its various component parts, including some of the interactions between Goering and Robert Jackson and Judge Lawrence and things that you've read about, but now you can hear it. So we're very pleased to have that. And the other piece of the puzzle is to, we've been able to gather some personal reflections of individuals who were actually there in the courtroom, whether they were reporting it for Armed Forces Network, for Stars and Stripes, and or prosecutors who are literally sitting second seat to Jackson. We've captured that, and that's available as well as part of the personal reflections of that time period of the Goering cross-examination. So I'm as excited as John and certainly Kristan that the Robert H. Jackson Center is launching such a project, and hopefully this is a harbinger of many more days to come.
Nuremberg courtroom, of course, was 75 years ago and was a small room. Very few people were able to be in it at the time. Many reporters produced print stories and some radio reports, but that's already secondhand. This audio material allows you to be in the courtroom, to hear it, to understand the pace, which is relatively slow, of examination and cross-examination with simultaneous translation, and to have the direct experience of discovering the enormous evil and criminality of Nazi Germany. What the Nuremberg prosecutors and judges did in real time is now something that each of us can do in real time.
Thank you, both John and Greg. The Jackson Center feels, as you both have articulated quite clearly, how valuable a resource this will be. The page will be updated regularly. As Greg mentioned, there are several hundred days for us to get through. So we will be adding to this collection continuously from the archaeology and video library that we have. And we hope that you will take the time to listen and to watch and to see this place in history. Thank you.